Well, salutations, fellow idiots. Welcome back to yet another episode of that full moon madness, baby. So, surprise, surprise, my original plans for the timeline of this wave got totally fucked up. Ended up caught up with some unpleasant real-life shit that I had to deal with. Thankfully, I got that sorted out. All things considered, 2 weeks is a lot better of a break than 2 fucking months, so hopefully you guys are stoked that we're returning with this. Outside of that, it definitely was a productive break hobby-wise. I was able to do lots of cool tabletop stuff with the kids as far as our D&D campaign goes. Built some dungeon boards and some terrain to that end, Got some tunnels and trolls going up in this bitch. So it was a productive break hobby-wise. It just didn't, net us any YouTube content, which was unfortunate, but once again, stoked to be back at it. And continuing our wave with our second film, and that is 1991's The Pit and the Pendulum, a film by Stuart Gordon. Now, there was some question over whether or not I'd actually caught this as a kid, and it turns out that I definitely didn't. Had I seen this motherfucker at the time, it would have immediately became a regular part of my rental rotation, because it is just a blast from start to finish, and hopefully I can impress that upon you fine folks today, so that you'll get out there and check it out if you haven't seen it, or give it a revisit if you haven't seen it in a while, because it is definitely worth repeat viewing. As I believe I did mention, though, I was exposed to the poster a bunch because our local video store had it displayed prominently for years, and it is a pretty rad fucking poster, so I can understand why. I believe there is some differences between this cover and the actual poster, but for all intents and purposes, it's basically the same image, and it was etched into my little kid brain forever. So I feel like, between the poster and for sure seeing the trailer at least once or twice, and possibly a video zone, I kind of did grow up exposed to this without having actually watched it. So finally watching it, in its entirety, felt like getting acquainted with an old friend that you'd never met before, if that makes sense. Absolutely fucking love this movie. And, we're going to jump in here, take a look at it a little bit, talk about some key scenes, and hopefully do a good job of explaining why. So here's to it, baby. Cheers. The Pit and the Pendulum was directed by Stuart Gordon and written by Dennis Powley. It was based on The Pit and the Pendulum and The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. It's also got a little bit of the Sword of Damocles thrown in for good measure. It was produced by Albert and Charles Band alongside Michael Catalano. It stars Lance Henriksen, Rona DeRicci, Jonathan Fuller, Jeffrey Coombs, Tom Towles, Stephen Lee, William J. Norris, Francis Bay, and Oliver Reed. We also can't leave out Mark Margulies playing Mendoza. It's got cinematography by Adolfo Bartoli, music by Richard Band. It was distributed by Paramount Home Video and released on June 27th of 1991. Basic gist of The Pit and the Pendulum is Lance Henriksen plays Torquemada, who is this absolutely batshit insane Inquisition monk that goes around torturing the fuck out of anybody he deems to be a heretic or a blasphemer or guilty of witchcraft. Enter Maria and Antonio, two, local bakers who are trying to sell their bread pretty ingeniously to the crowds that gather for these public executions of these witches. They're out there during one such spectacle trying to sell their loaves of bread when Maria, who disagrees with the church's use of torture against these heretics, steps in and intervenes while they're whipping the shit out of some young lad while they choke his mom out in front of him, which brings them under the attention of Torquemada. He is immediately smitten with Maria because she's fucking beautiful, and when he feels these manly urges surging through his body, he decides that it must be a product of her witchcraft, so he accuses her and has her arrested. He pretty much figures the only way to, suppress these urges is to have them flagellated out of him, and the only solution to Maria is to torture her until she confesses to being a witch. Meanwhile, her husband Antonio is having none of that, so he, proceeds to attempt to break into this castle and rescue his wife. Meanwhile, she befriends this confessed witch named Esmeralda, played amazingly by Francis Bay, and they kind of work on actually, teaching her to use witchcraft so that she can take her mind away to a place free of the torture. On the side of that, there's a whole bit where, the Vatican tries to send an emissary from Rome to inform Torquemada that he's got to stop using torture as part of the Inquisition, and him being the face of the Inquisition, isn't too happy about that, and he deals with it in about the way you would expect a mad monk to deal with such an issue. This entire movie just gets fucking insane right out of the gate and progressively ups the ante throughout the entire film. It's pretty much one part like black comedy action adventure movie mixed with a serious, balls to the wall, uncomfortable Inquisition style exploitation flick. Which you would assume just wouldn't work, but oddly enough, it fucking does. The movie is legitimately funny from start to finish, while at the same time being legitimately unsettling. The best way I can describe it is it's like if they did an Inquisition movie with some Mel Brooks sensibilities, but didn't let Lance Henriksen in on the joke, because he's absolutely bone-chilling the entire time. And legend has it, he even went and flipped out on some local Spaniards during production because he refused to get out of character and just started, ranting religiously at them in the streets. He also did a lot to make Rona DeRicci uncomfortable before shooting their scenes together so that the stuff would be legitimately slimy. And good on you, Lance, it fucking worked. You're seeing something pretty fun and insane at the same time when you watch, the opening scene where Torquemada has them exhume this long dead count to accuse him of witchcraft and sentence him to 20 lashings, effectively turning his corpse into a flesh piñata so that he can steal, their family's fortune for the church. But you're really watching something truly insane and unsettling when you hit that scene where old Torquemada finger blasts a guy's crucifixion wounds, and then takes off his little bondage corset and forces that same dude to flog him in penance for his manly urges. So there's a lot going on in this movie, all of it awesome in various ways, and Lance Henriksen is definitely delivering one hell of a performance throughout. That shit is not to be missed. You will never look at Bishop the same way again. Honestly, everybody's performances are pretty fucking spectacular. There's not really a weak link in the cast with the exception of Jonathan Fuller, and even with his performance and the camp that he brings to it, it kind of perfectly complements the intended humor during his scenes of the movie. The fight sequences are pretty beautifully choreographed given the budget and the tone of the film. Set design is awesome given the fact that they just shot in a real fucking castle. This is back when Full Moon had that Paramount money, so they could afford to just put everybody up in the same castle that they were shooting the movie in. Soundtrack's pretty dope. You got Richard Band cranking one out again for this gem, and the special effects all are very adequate. I especially like the bits where you can see Antonio's finger bones sticking out as the rats are chewing on him. Honorable mention to the scene where Frances Bay eats a bunch of gunpowder before they burn her at the stake so that she turns into a human bomb and her bones become the shrapnel. Definitely scared the shit out of my cats by cheering at the top of my lungs when I saw that go down. Easily one of the most creative death sequences I've ever seen in a movie. So anyway, dude breaks into the castle to try to rescue his wife, and Lance Henriksen decides he's going to subject him to the ultimate Inquisition torture device, the pit and the pendulum. And, that whole finale of the movie is absolutely fucking insane, perfectly executed, and definitely worthy of the build-up that led into it. I love this movie. I think that's came across pretty sincerely throughout the course of this review, hopefully. And that's because it's just a lot of fucking fun, but at the same time, it is a grueling experience, The magic of The Pit and the Pendulum is that it is simultaneously a harrowing fucking exploitation flick and a horror comedy. And they managed to do those things without taking away from the other end of it. And then they blend them pretty fucking seamlessly as well. I don't know why I fucking did that, but it's done. It's in the past now. They blend it seamlessly. So it creates this environment where you don't know scene to scene whether or not it's supposed to be unsettling or whether or not it's supposed to be funny or whether or not it's supposed to be both. I mean, some of them are obvious, but then some of them surprise you, where it's like a twisted fucking scene, but with a good sense of dark humor to it as well. Just perfectly crafted horror comedy. I like a good, just straight up in-your-face, tongue-in-cheek horror comedy as much as I like a serious exploitation flick. And sometimes, you lose a bit of one to be more of the other when you're doing this type of shit. Pit and the Pendulum somehow manages to sacrifice nothing on either end of it, and it is a worthy addition to the genres, respectively. So definitely worth getting out there and checking it out. It's one you can shock your friends with, but at the same time, it's a rad beer and popcorn movie. So it just works on every level, and I can't get enough of it. I actually kind of want to watch it again tonight, if I'm honest, just for shits and giggles. So that does it for The Pit and the Pendulum. Get the fuck out there, check it out. It should be available free on Tubi. If not, it is definitely on Full Moon Streaming, which you guys should consider looking into, considering the addition they made to the subscription plan. So, look into that. I believe I talked about it in my last pickup video. As you know, if you watched our coming attractions segment, our next film in the lineup is Netherworld. As always, I have been Mosley. You've been a bunch of sexy fucking beasts, and this has been yet another episode of that Full Moon Madness. Cheers. Thanks for watching.